Welcome to our next guest. It is a Tuesday at 7:30. You best believe it. And the man, the pearl, the icon, the legend himself, Cal Bruton, in the house.
Morning, Troy. How you doing?
Good morning, my man. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
You're welcome, man. This you wake a brother up in the morning when you jamming like that. Shoot, everyday people. That was my jam right there.
I do actually try and come up with some music without asking you that may get you up and about, and I mean it's a winner with that one.
Oh, no question about it, man. I remember in the club, at the old Hilton. I couldn't wait to get on the dance floor and try some new moves out.
Some new moves. I've only got a few.
I was always trying to be. That was my basketball court away from the court. Trying to kind of get the shivel. The shake and bake. It was good fun back then when you could dance. Now I only got a two-step move.
You got the Timmy Hardaway UTEP two-step.
That's it. That's it.
I appreciate you joining us this morning, and in a 30-minute slot, we have so much to unpack. There's a couple of areas I want to dabble into, but I guess let's start from the beginning. You arrived here in Australia in the 80s? 79, on the cusp, and you came straight into, and that was a basketball role that you came here for?
Correct. Yeah, straight into the Brisbane Bullets.
And what was your first few years like in the league? What was the landscape like as an import? You were one of the first imports. Tell us a little bit about that and your journey when you landed here, and we'll try and trundle through and get to today.
A lot of maybe your listeners may have heard. I arrived the day before the first game of the NBL's start of the season, start of the history of the league in 1979. Played my very first game against the Canberra Cannons, and it was Herb McKeechin, the other Black American import. And we found out later that we were the only two in the league at that stage. We started off slow in Brisbane. We lost our first couple of games, and we finally got a win against Illawarra Hawks, which was a nationally televised game, the first one that I played in. And then the following, at the end of that season, we came home like gangbusters. We were 8-2 down the stretch, but they didn't have a top 4 playoff or anything like that. It was just the top 2 teams playing off.
Oh, really? Right.
But I was invited to Melbourne to watch the grand final and receive an award for the leading scorer of the NBL. In the first year, I averaged 33.2 a game in the 40-minute era without a three-point line. So it was quite a feat for me, but
yeah.
More importantly, the team had success, and I was there watching my man Herb McKeechin play off for the championship against St. Kilda, who had brother Danny Morsu playing on the other team, and they Canberra went down by 1. Of course, I had met Danny through the course of the season. He's quite an athlete, quite a player, quite a person, and we connected there, and of course, Geelong. Cats, as they were known back then, they became super after I left. But
that's because you got them there, Cal. It's like you loosen the lid, the lid, and they just popped it off.
Yeah, no question about that. We had won 3 championships while I was there, 2 back-to-back Victorian titles, a Cebu championship. We finished as Western Division champions twice. We went to 1 NBL Grand Final and 2 semifinals. So we had a successful campaign during my 5 years, and they invited me down to see whether I'd be interested in coming to Geelong, but they weren't in the league. And I was kind of all right with that because they gave me the opportunity to bring my family out and 2 of my mates. So they said, if you can bring 2 of your mates to help us get this thing going, we're happy to accommodate you. And I said, great. That's all I really wanted was to have my family around after being away for close to 5 months.
Right.
It's almost like being in the bubble of the NBA.
Yeah, right. So they didn't come over with you on your first landing here. It was more use, get your feet, suss it out, and once things settle.
Yes, I was hoping to go back to Brisbane, but they didn't want to cater for my family, so it was no way I was going to be able to come back there. And it was just difficult financial times. You know, I was on a package. You compare these guys. I was on a package of $400 a week. You know,
Wow, wow,
but
wow.
the dollar was a good value. I sent all my money home to my family, and I lived on the food and breakfast that they supplied in the fridge there in our little one bedroom apartment with my fellow import player Dan Hickett, and they gave us a little stipend of $180 a week if we go visit all the schools during the week.
Hmm.
And so we did that. And then, of course, I got a little better deal when I went to Geelong. After completing Geelong, 1984, we lost in the semis, and they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction under new ownership,
Hmm.
and they wanted me to step down as player coach, which I had been for the previous 3 years. I said that's fine, but then they came with the the audacity to say, well, now that you accepted it, now we're gonna cut your contract in half. And it wasn't like we was making a lot of money back there. I think I was on 27 grand or something. I worked my way up. So all of a
Mm.
sudden I'm down to 13 and a half. And I was like, that's not gonna fly because I had three kids at that time. I had another son born, and they said, well, if you're not going to accept it, then we're not going to pay you,
Mm.
and you're on your own. But the beauty for myself at that point was that I had become a Australian citizen.
Uh-huh.
So my family was still all American, but I was the only Australian, along with my youngest son, born here, Austin. And I decided, well, let me go see whether or not someone else be interested. And Brisbane at that time had missed out on the grand final win with Leroy Loggins,
Yeah.
and they had Brian Curl, the coach, offered me an opportunity to come up and visit and see what the landscape looked like, and I accepted. Went ahead and went up, and when I went back to Geelong, they said, "So what are you going to do? Are you going to Brisbane, or are you going to stay here?" I said, "Well, it depends if you're going to give me my full contract. I'm staying. If not, then we'll have to decide." And they stopped paying, and I said, "Well, that's it." We ordered a truck, and we
Rightio, off
packed
you go.
up, and we moved to Brizzy. And of
Wow.
course, I was taken to court, to the Supreme Court in Victoria. Um, as they said, I walked out on them, and I got um, a clearance fee stamped on my head for $7,000, and I had to find that money so I can play in Brisbane. I missed the first two games of the year being in court. We lost to Perth, and we lost to Adelaide, and then we played Melbourne in the third game. I was cleared to play, and we went on to win the championship that year. So that was the beauty for me. I won my first NBL championship with the Bullets, and Leroy Loggins being the greatest player of all time. They say, I believe it, and we collected the award the next year. I was eligible to play for Australia. I went away and represented in the U.S. and also in Spain in the World Championships. We lost early in the rounds in the World Championship, so came back home. Unfortunately, I was injured. I had a bad ankle sprain before we left, which only escalated over there, running on cobblestone streets, with a big ankle, because they didn't have any sort of protocol to
Yeah.
look after the athletes back then. And
Right, right.
I had stress fractures for 6 weeks, I think it was. I was out. And when I got back, we made a charge for the finals. We went to the grand final to lose to Adelaide in the third game against Al Green, Mark Davis,
Uh-huh.
Bill Jones and Co. and Dow Pierce, Ray Wood. They had a great team, very deserving. And after that was over with, I was out of contract again after just 2 years in Brisbane. And I was told they were going to replace me with a younger player. They just felt they had to move in another direction. So I sat back and tried to negotiate with some clubs who contacted me, but it was only one place I really wanted to go. It was Perth,
Uh-huh.
who had never had a winning season, and I had seen and met their owner in Adelaide briefly. Seemed like a great guy, Bob Williams.
Mm.
He owned a construction company, and he was looking at Ken Cole as the new coach because he had just got fired from Adelaide after winning the championship. And he then said, "Well, I'd like to interview you." Great, and he gave me a call and said, didn't even want even an interview. He just said, "Would you like to come?" I made him I think you'll be the coach for us. I was like, yes. So I packed up and flew over to the West and spent some time organizing the team and selecting the imports, recruits. I brought in Tiny Pender, James Crawford. I had a brother named James Jackson who was there already, who I met up in Brisbane, and he was a top player. I just wanted him in the squad to be around it. I had Dan Hickett, my first import I played with in Brizzy. And then we had all the locals. We had Steve Davis, also brought in all the locals, Mike Ellis, Trevor Thomas, Steve Davis. We had a really good crew, Alan Black. And then we went on to compete for the championship that first year, and right. We lost by a point at home, and then we went on to lose the second game, and that was it. Took 3 more years before we got there again, or 4 more years before we got there again, and we won it in 1990. And that was my first championship as a coach. But unfortunately, after that season was over, they said that they wanted me to step up as the CEO, and I really felt that coaching was where I wanted to be, particularly after winning the championship. And I was a non-playing coach as well at that time. I had just retired from playing. But the new owner, again, it always comes with new ownership, Kerry Stokes, seen another level for me. He didn't want me to be in that seat. Later, I was to discover that one of their players that we were recruiting, and Andrew Vlahov, wasn't going to come to the team if I was the coach, and they really wanted him. So that's why they wanted to elevate me to the CEO, and I wasn't buying it. So I ended up being tossed to the side again, and I had a role as general manager. But it was one of those Clayton roles. I had nothing to do because I had sold we had sold all the sponsorship and all the advertising. Everything was done, and so I used to just sit in my office every day. Wasn't allowed to talk to the players or anything like that, and that was kind of tough. Just I felt like I was in prison, so to speak.
Because you're a basketball brain.
First Wildcats office, and very disappointing. But at the end of the day, they made a move that they felt they needed to. I was disappointed because I worked so hard to get the program standing up, strong, and became obviously one of the best programs in Australia now from that point. And they never looked back. But then I had no role to play, so I left to go to Hobart, Tasmania, who the guy who brought me to Australia offered me the opportunity and to go down there, Dave Atkins. And when I got there, they fired the general manager as soon as I got off the plane. So I had nobody I could relate to, and we never had the funds down there. So it was 3 years of struggling, but we had some good wins. I had a good time trying to build a program. We had a couple of success stories. One in particular, Anthony Stewart, who went on to do some great things in setting up their Cebu program and winning championships there. And he was one of the guys I introduced to the league, as well as a couple others. And so my role then was to go back to Perth and follow my son CJ, who had just cracked the NBL with his first shot over the halfway, which I never got to see because we were down on the 8. we only had ABC in Tasmania.
He was still in the office. Still tucked away in the office chair.
But it was fantastic coming back to Perth. But again, I was hoping to get a role with the Wildcats. There was none available. I looked to the sponsors that we had that I had actually brought on board, hoping they would support me, but I couldn't get on board there either. And I ended up meeting a professor by the name of Ron Cassiope, who really is from New Jersey. Man, he's my friend to this day, one of my best friends. He gave me an opportunity to work with him at the university, but also he was having contracts with the post office, the Australia Post, and he got me a job on the postie bike.
Yeah, baby.
And that turned into a role that helped develop further systems in the Australia Post in Western Australia, because at that point we had a lot of posties dumping mail, like people weren't getting their mail. And
right.
Yeah, he had me as a guy who was like, I felt like the undercover spy, in the mailroom. But I never rode a motorcycle before. Even though it was only a little 250, I was going everywhere. I got to share this story real quickly, and then I'm sure you got more questions.
Yeah,
But
go for it.
I was delivering out in Kernby, the north side of Joondalup.
Uh,
And of course, the kids started to recognize, they got a new postie, and he's a little short black guy. So, of course, I got my helmet on. They couldn't see me, but then one day they waited for me, and when the lady offered me a glass of tea, iced tea, I said, "Oh, great." And when I put my helmet on, they said, "It is you. It's now." Right? Of course, they had to put a goal up in the driveway, and would you
that's the
have a
best.
couple shots with my son? The next thing you know, I'm out there shooting. So the days followed. I'm coming there now. It's a crowd gathering. It's all the kids in the neighborhood.
It's
I
so
get my glass of tea. Next thing you know, I'm playing the game. You talking about dumping mail? I said, "Geez, I'm falling behind my route because I'm working to sweat up with the kids and the whole bit." I ended up giving the kids the mail to deliver over the next few blocks on their bicycles, so I can dash to the next suburb and catch up. Everybody thought that was a wonderful example of how you empower young people.
Yeah, that's it. Cal, so much of that story is about building up others. Uh, from the time that you get here, you're here to build a program. And each time you move, whether or not you left for whatever agreeable reason, your next journey seems like it was never a backseat for you. It was always, all right, where's the biggest challenge? Where needs the biggest boost? Like
Yes.
the biggest, because everyone probably needs some help from a really good player like yourself with the basketball brain, the positivity, but the work ethic. But clearly some people, it didn't suit them. But naturally, you are attracted to bringing up or closing the gap. Tell us a little bit about your role outside of basketball. I know in particular a couple of organizations that you are a part of. Sports Ready is one of them. But also tell us a little bit about what attracted to you for the first time to the Indigenous issues here in Australia.
Well, I suppose it started right back with Danny Mosu. Meeting him and then starting to understand a little bit about what he stood for. Michael Armat, who from South Australia, met him when I played in the Cebu and went to Adelaide and sat down with him. And to this day, I'm close with his family, and also, I speak to Danny often. We sit on the NBL rap committee these days. But my role was in 1988 was my first time spending a bit of time in Indigenous communities. Kerry Stokes, in his beginning, owned a company called West Track, where they did a lot of equipment, earth moving equipment, and he was delivering it out to Roburn and the Pilbara. And I flew up there to present it. And also I was a guest at the Roburn Hotel. So I got a chance to see the ins and outs of the community. And man, it kind of opened my eyes. I was brought up in a Black community, in Brooklyn, New York City. And I knew all the hardships that my family had to go through, my dad being killed and all. And then going in the racial divide that we had in that community. But then when I got to Roburn, I had a real good look, and I saw how all the kids walked around with no shoes on, and they all wanted to play some ball. They all loved the Wildcats because of every Friday or Saturday night we were on live television, so they can identify. And then I started not only deliver these programs, but I had a opportunity to go there. Excuse me.
You're all good.
Okay. Every year I had an opportunity to go there. So I really looked I looked at it as an opportunity to get to the Kimberley in Western Australia. And then I met a gentleman by the name of Mark Minato, who actually he was working with the TAFE, and he was entrenched. He's an elder, Aboriginal elder, and a guy named Bob Minicon was entrenched in the education side of the Aboriginal communities. And I was straight away felt it, that was where calling could be. He took me on a 4-wheel drive from Bruton to Connemara to Fitzroy Crossing to Halls Creek to Derby.
Oh, you went up the middle.
We were going on the bumpy roads and whatnot, and we were delivering. And that's when my first eye opener when I saw the young indigenous kids committing suicide, and that slapped me in the face so hard. I couldn't look back. I started thinking about my own kids, how they would
Mm.
be, how that would affect me.
Was
And
that
so I
was that
started
something?
right
Sorry,
then.
was that something you experienced in your community back home? Was suicide something that? Because I haven't heard too much, but you're probably best to Shit, there's a spider crawling down my head. Yeah, is suicide something that hits home, or is it more? You
We've
guys,
had cases,
but it's
not like that
not as
though.
crazy as not as widespread.
It'd be more in the states. It'd be more somebody murdering somebody
Yes,
else.
and it's later, and
You
it's
know?
later in life a little bit more. Not these young kids, 10, 9 years old, 30. Yeah.
Yes.
Continue on.
Yes.
Sorry.
So and then I had to wait for the kids to finish grieving before they come back.
You got sorry
I wouldn't
business.
leave. I told Mark and Bob, let's stay. Ain't no hurry for me. I want to see these kids and try to give them some hope and show them what the basketball game can do for them. Like it just takes your mind off, and that's what it did for me when I lost my dad. I had a ball, a hoop, and myself, and I'm out there just dreaming about the game and about winning championships and about all that when I was a youngster. So had no idea this journey was going to take place, but having those kids in my grasp was just something that I really got enjoyment out of, and I could see the enjoyment they had received from me. And then I decided from that point on, that's the work I had to put in. So I traveled all over the Kimberley. Then I started going to other states. I'm proud to say that I've covered every state and territory in Australia on my own back. I've gone from the Northern Territory to Alice Springs to obviously Tasmania, Northern Queensland, you name it. I've been there riding on the back of different organizations. As you mentioned, AFL Sports Ready, I've been with them for the last 6 years. What I love most about them, they've given me a platform as a master coach to go out and reach out and help the kids with their education and employment opportunities. I've used the basketball as the tool of engagement, being that people know me as that, but they see AFL, they're like, oh, Cal, you done switch codes. What's going on?
Can you kick a footy?
No. I can throw one, though. I'm a quarterback.
Gotcha.
But I love the work. I love what they do. I see so many joys. I host all of the graduations around the country, and to see the young indigenous kids come through and get their certificate of or diploma in whatever field, whether it's business admin or IT or horticulture or they sport and rec, you name it. You see the proudness around their families and around the employers, and that gives me a lot of joy. So now I've been involved with them. I've also done work on my own through Bruton basketball to try to establish that basketball connection. My son CJ and Elliot Austin, and now my two younger boys, and my daughter's in social work. We all chime in and try to give what we can to help the young kids see that there are huge opportunities out there for them. And sport is just one of them, but you use the sport to get into the other areas,
sure.
and that's how you engage. So yes, I'm very proud of that work, and we'll continue to do so.
I got a question. I don't know if you know this guy off the top of your head, but he used to be on the Melbourne Tigers list, Aboriginal player Kane Muir. He sent me a question earlier today, and we've been talking a little bit about racism in the NBL. You highlighted in some of your in your posts and things you've done with Sports Ready, but online you're very public about how the landscape of Australian basketball needs to change. There's not enough Indigenous kids, and there's not enough Indigenous people or culturally aware brains at the top, whether or not they're Indigenous or not. Kane asked a question, and I promised him I would ask you it. He asked for some advice or paths of action any individual can take when faced with racism. It's kind of, you've got a bit of a sport touch, but you're out in the community. It's a huge question. Everyone's got their own answer. I want to know what yours is.
Mine's is just straight simple. Call it out. Call it out. Meet it head on. Take the hits. What comes with it comes with it. But I'm bringing it live and in color like no other. I'm trying to be that good brother. as our previous leaders, Martin Luther King and others,
Mm, mm,
Malcolm X, you name it. You just gotta face it. And I have a
mm,
young family, a multicultural family. My children, my youngest children are Macedonian,
mm.
Australian, American. you know, I call them Ma, MAA.
Uh,
But I'm very proud to be in that space.
yeah,
And I'm an elder. I'm 66 years old now. I call it Route 66. I'm calling it out. And as
yeah.
a result of that, I've had people come to me and ask me to be a representative on their boards. I'm disappointed, Kane, just like everyone else is. There's no Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders on any sort of organization until recently with
Mm,
the RAP committee. They got NBL RAP, but I still don't see anyone working for their organization. I've been here 41 years. I was told there's
mm,
16 people around the place, but no one's been identified, you know, with their hand up saying, I'm that guy. I know there's no Black Americans in there.
mm,
Basketball Australia the same, but I think we're making some steps, some positive steps. I know there's, some couple of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander identities now working with Basketball Australia. The disappointment for me though, Kane, is that when I go to some of those people to help that are sitting in the seats of change, they don't come back and they say, "Yo, Cal, can we work together?" When I've given some of those people opportunities to sort of step up to that space and be productive and get their face out there and their profile, but the reciprocation hasn't been there yet. I believe that it has to come.
mm,
It's strength in numbers,
mm,
you know,
mm,
and as we get more together, connected, I think there's movements that can happen that can help establish things. So
mm.
it's a challenge all the
Yeah.
time, every day. But I believe there's some good things happening. So let's stay on the positive tip and sort of open up your heart and your minds, and let's see how we can make the best of the next day and keep making progress in that way.
You just mentioned positivity. I think a lot of people find it really hard, especially when it's lived racism. It's really hard to understand how to be positive when you're recovering. Like you're in it. You're in it. And I'm not saying you're not in it because you're in it too. You came here as one of the first imports, and I'm sure you had your fair share of racism. It's documented online as well, and you've been vulnerable enough to express that to an Indigenous person. I mean, just recently in the netball, I don't know if you saw Indigenous round. I mean,
Yes.
when you say small steps, what is small almost looks invisible. Like what? I mean, you might hear about it because you might be in conversation, but to the general eye and Indigenous people around the world who want role models. And if anyone doesn't know that story, it was Indigenous round for the netball recently, and their only Indigenous player didn't get put on the court, but she was used as the face for the whole campaign. She didn't even get on the court, and they were up by 7 points. The game was over. At least put your only Indigenous player on. It's those kind of decisions that I feel like seem to not get addressed. But what's the issue? Why is there a glitch in the system when it sounds like you're doing all the things, you're having meetings, you're putting your hand up, you're sending ideas, you're using your platform, you're speaking on behalf of people because you're in and they're not, yet nothing gets done. And we want to stay positive. How do you look at it?
Well,
It's
in
tiring.
that case, that was a bad mistake. That was a real bad mistake.
I think
And
it's
they
only-
ticking boxes too. Some people just want to tick boxes. I've been working with an organization that I've been going there for years.
Mm,
I've put my whole family in it. I've helped develop it. And then you get to a situation where they achieve what they want. And as the old saying goes, now that they got no further use for you, they won't even pick up a phone call or return
right.
an email or a text. But you know what? The game is not over until you win, you know? And
Yeah.
you got to keep your focus on that. And you got to bring the energy with it. I mean, you can just look at the States,
Mm,
and that's a
mm,
prime example
mm.
with what the NBA has done with the bubble. I don't think anybody does it any better than them. And all those brothers with and sisters, WNBA as well,
Yep.
had those jerseys and had those sayings on the back and basically preached that platform to talk about systemic racism and
Mm,
what's going on in America. And still someone gets shot 8 times in the back. So what do? Do you fold up the tent? No, they went back to the drawing board. They actually
That's right.
protest for a day and got their act together and then went ahead forward with more commitment. And that's what you have to do. I'm disappointed when I see young Aboriginal people live in in unlivable circumstances.
Mm.
You know, I recently just saw pictures of a house condemned with garbage and babies running up in there. You know, and I look at that and say, hold up, somebody's got to take charge of that.
Yeah.
You know, because it's our babies that we got to look after. It's not about us no more. It's about the future. And so if you're going to take the hit, that's fine, but you got to make it clear for the next generation. And that's what I'm all about. And I just think that sometimes you said there's so much negativity out there that they don't see no hope. You got to believe in hope. You got to, I say 4-letter words. You got to give, you got to work, you got to care. And when all that sort of is going on, then you got to pray. All right. But you got to have some sort of resolve to make a difference. And to me, when I see Aboriginal people living like that, I reckon they need to get some sort of assistance, help. You can't just, I know everyone's entitled to a house. You can't put them in just the next house and let them do the same thing again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they got to come with some support systems in place to make sure they understand how important, I call it the she theory, because my mom was my blessing. I call it the sport, the health, the education, and employment. The she, that's what she says, all right? If you can just chime the kids into that and get them their body actives, get their body active, understand the nutrition side, and then also the health is paramount. You know, I'm good friends with Janine Muhammad.
Yeah, and Justin.
And Justin, you know, beautiful, beautiful Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who care about their people. You know, I've had a bit to do with them. And she's in the Lewitsa Institute, and her husband is the commissioner for Victorian young people. To me, that's our Beyonce and Jay-Z. Right?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta plug into those people. You gotta find a way to get better, you know, and that's what it's all about. Just getting better and having the support systems around you. There's people out there who will support you, but only if you're gonna try to carry your side of it. You know, you're gonna have to carry your own weight. And that's where I feel that don't let the racism stop you. Don't use that as an excuse. Don't be a victim. You know, you take, that's why I feel like I'd be an activist, so to speak, you know? And I just had a hip replacement. I've had 4 operations, you know, over the last 4 years. You know what? Shit, I've just done 2 clinics on the road, you know, traveling 6 hours there, 6 hours back, 1 here in Canberra, no venues, people shut me down. But you know what? Shit, it's another way to get things going. You just gotta take 2 steps to the rear and get on around there. You know?
I love it, Cal. You are such an example of literally just turning up. Turn up.
That's a good term.
Turn up. Turn up. And that is irrespective of how you got to get there.
Yeah. Good call.
I remember when you turned up to that the last basketball clinic, the basketball tournament, and I know you were fresh off of surgery, and you were still there, or you maybe just before you were going in, but you were hurting, and I remember seeing you there, and you rocked up. I said, "What are you doing here?" You're like, "I got to turn up for the kids," you know, like these. It was an engagement that you promised. It was at I think it was at Shepparton or Darebin or something, but it was a pretty kind of regarded as a small event in some people's eyes above your own health. But I'm inspired. There's people texting in here saying, we need more Cal Brutons in this world. Another Indigenous fella, friend of mine, said, yeah, Cal makes me want to do better. Jane Blackston, what a great dude. It's fascinating stuff. A lot of people you're reaching. I just am inspired by how you turn up, and you just said it so well. You just got to take a couple steps to the right or the left.
And keep on moving out of there. You know, I just think that's so important, Troy. I remember that situation. I had actually had a prostrate problem. I was actually carrying a bag strapped to my leg, you know, and My man Adam Desmond in Perth. I had flown to Perth. I had drove to Albany.
That's
I
right.
had to. I told the doctor I couldn't carry this thing no more. I got clinics. He said, "Well, Cal, I don't think you can take it out because if you do, something dangerous might happen, And I said, "Well, please take it out. I got to take that. I can't carry it no more." And I took it out, and within 3 hours, I was back in the hospital getting it put back in because I
Oh,
couldn't
right.
go to the bathroom. And then I jumped in the car and drove 4 hours or whatever it was to Albany to make sure I showed up for the kids. So to me, you do what you have to do. And if
Uh-huh.
you can, and you know what? No disrespect to my family or anything, but if I checked out that way, I'm fine with that. you know,
Spot on.
my thing is don't let the kids down,
Mm,
and that's like letting your parents down because they bringing you up. And
mm,
I expressed, and I put a little post up the other day. It's all about the responsibility that you
mm.
carry. It's all about giving the kids the wings of independence. All right. So if you show them the way, they will go, they will follow you,
Mm, mm,
and I believe wholeheartedly that the message is in the swag. You got a skill set, you use it. You got a work ethic, you use it. You got an aptitude for learning, you use it. And you got goals there, you try and achieve it. And when I write down my goals, I try to tick my boxes. I look at them. And it's people that I feel just trying to stubbornly block you, just
yeah.
because I don't know what it is that they don't like about you or whatever, but I'm just going to be me. And I don't feel that there's a whole lot wrong with me because I just try to be positive.
Mm,
I'm trying to pat people on the back until their heads swell up.
mm.
you know, it don't cost me anything, but it's all about connecting more people and getting more people on board. And as soon as you get enough people like LeBron
Mm,
James,
mm.
much as he's achieved, everyone's still got the haters out there. It's just going to happen. But you know what? Keep coming and keep coming because I'm bringing more this way too, And pretty soon, I think you win out in the end. As I mentioned, the game is not over until you win.
Andy Barkley, another Geelong basketball fan.
The long teammates.
Yeah, we got so many people sitting here, really inspired, and Cal, you just have you have an impact as soon as you open your mouth, but it's led by your actions, and I appreciate your time and everything you do for, especially the Aboriginal community, but also for your own family. They must be so proud of you. You got some good sons there that we all know of. And shout out to the other crew that are jumping in and out of the room. And I'm sure you're a dad as well. And you're just such
Granddad too, times 7.
yeah.
I got my young
Congratulations.
ones. Yeah. No, thank you, Troy. I really appreciate it, man. I got to commend you too on the work you do. I admire you and what you did and what you're doing. You in the U.S., you trying to make a difference there.
Yeah.
You connecting all the dots as
Mm,
well.
mm, mm.
I look forward to the day we all join forces and we start really, really changing the landscape.
That's what we're
And
doing.
I think that comes with the music
Yeah.
industry, that comes with the art, that comes
Mm.
with the sport. you know,
Using your
and we'll
platform.
work something out.
Is there somewhere where people can follow your journey, Cal, before we duck off? Have you got
They can obviously on my Facebook page, Calvin T. Bruton. That's Thomas in the middle. You can catch me there. I got another page with Bruton Basketball and the Black Pearl Basketball Academy. I got 3 sort of platforms. I try to keep things live out there and
Excellent.
what we're doing with photos and examples. And there's a lot of organizations around that I've connected to, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organizations around the place. AFL Sports Ready is probably one of my biggest platforms because they give me the opportunity to reach out to thousands of young kids around the country. And, I'm hoping that one day the NBL will come to that party as well as Basketball Australia. So I'll just keep doing the work on the foundation level. And if you want me to come to your space, hey, we got connections. I got Brutons that live in just about every state and territory. Or Bruton basketball fans. That's it. So we're happy to come. We're happy to come energize you guys and show you what we've done. And, hopefully that's going to be something that you can get excited about and learn from, and hopefully use as a vehicle at some point in time.
Uh, Cal, I thank you so much. I think about that day in 1979. You rocked up to Australia and what you've become and what you do. We could all do with some more Cals. I appreciate your time, brother, and
You
God
got it,
bless
bro.
you, man. You're the
Appreciate
man.
you, Troy.
Thank you for your time today, Cal. We're going to head off and kick off for the day.
All right. Have a good one, bro.
You too.